Well, hello, friends and neighbors from around the world. Sid High here again with a sermon on communication advances around the year 1920. Between 1910 and the 1930s, science and technology underwent seismic shifts. This was the era that cracked open the atom, rewired our understanding of space and time, and laid the groundwork for modern medicine and electronics. Some examples are Bohr's model of the atom, 1913, Theory of General Relativity, 1915, Quantum Mechanics Foundations, 1920s, Discovery of the Neutron, 1932, Insulin, 1921, the list goes on. In the preface to the second edition of the book, The Story of Philosophy, which was published in 1926, Will Durant states, human knowledge had become unmanageably vast. Every science had begotten a dozen more, each subtler than the rest. Human knowledge had become too great for the human mind. The layperson could no longer keep up with even a general understanding of all of the discoveries without being overwhelmed. In fact, even the professionals could no longer keep up with the discoveries in their field, so they had to specialize in an area of their field so as not to be overwhelmed themselves. There's a lot more to that, but that's a good generalization, I would say, right there. In 1923, Edward Bernays wrote the book Crystallizing Public Opinion, and in 1928, the book Propaganda. He is often called the father of public relations, but he didn't invent techniques. He engineered a worldview where mass persuasion became a cornerstone of democracy, commerce, and culture. Drawing from Freud's psychoanalysis, he was Freud's nephew, by the way, Bernays believed that manipulating the subconscious was not only possible, but necessary to guide the public in a complex society. Here are some examples of his techniques. Psychological manipulation, appeal to emotions. Bernays prioritized emotional triggers over rational arguments. He used fear, desire, and status to shape public opinion. Subconscious association. He linked products or ideas to deeper psychological needs like freedom, beauty, or patriotism without making it explicit. Third-party endorsements. Credible messengers. Instead of promoting an idea directly, Bernays used trusted figures, such as doctors, celebrities, academia, to deliver it. This gave the illusion of objectivity because he paid them. Front groups. He often created seemingly independent organizations to push corporate or political agendas, masking the true source of influence. Very key there, masking the true source. Media saturation. News as a tool. Bernays understood that people trust news more than ads, so he crafted stories and fed them to journalists, shaping public discourse from behind the scenes, otherwise known as lying. Repetition and ubiquity. His campaigns flooded media channels, creating a sense of inevitability and consensus around the promoted idea. Political branding. Bernays applied advertising logic to political candidates, advising campaigns to sell politicians like consumer products, complete with slogans, imagery, and emotional appeal. Social engineering. Organizing chaos. In his book, Propaganda, 1928, Bernays argued that society needs an invisible government, those who understand mass psychology, to organize public opinion for stability. Group dynamics. He targeted social groups rather than individuals, knowing that people conform to perceived norms and collective behavior. The group reacts differently than the individual. There are more, but let's stop there and discuss communication advances around this time. Radio broadcasting takes off. 1920. KDKA in Pittsburgh became the first commercial radio station broadcasting the presidential election results. By the end of the decade, radios were in most American homes, delivering news, music, sports, and serialized dramas. Radio created a shared national culture, allowing millions to experience events simultaneously, something never before possible. The rise of talkies and films. Silent films dominated early cinema, but in 1927, the jazz singer introduced synchronized sound, revolutionizing the industry. Movies became a powerful medium for mass communication, influencing fashion, behavior, and public opinion. Telephone adoption accelerates. Telephones became more affordable and widespread, especially in urban areas. Enabled instant voice communication across distances, transforming business, journalism, and personal relationships. Mass advertising and print media. Advances in printing and distribution allowed newspapers and magazines to reach national audiences. Advertising evolved into a psychologically savvy industry using emotion and identity to sell products and ideas, but mainly lies. Very important to remember that. This era birthed the consumer culture with messaging embedded, in entertainment, news, and even architecture. Public messaging and propaganda. Governments and corporations began using these media to shape public opinion. Radio and film were used to promote patriotism, consumerism, and social norms, laying the groundwork for modern propaganda techniques. These technologies didn't just connect people, they reshaped identity, accelerated cultural shifts, and centralized influence in a way that we still echo today. So I presented Copilot AI with this question: how did the Nazis use technical advances in communication to advance their propaganda? And this was the response. The Nazis were masterful at exploiting emerging communication technologies to amplify their propaganda machine. Here's how they weaponized technical advances, especially radio, to shape public opinion and control the narrative. But first, here's a list of the 7 traditional great powers that were dominant forces shaping global affairs before mass electronic media. Military power, armies and warfare as tools of conquest and control. Economic power, industrial capacity, trade, and financial influence. Political power, governance, lawmaking, and statescraft. Diplomatic power, alliances, treaties, and international negotiations. Cultural power, art, education, and national identity formation. Religious power, moral authority, and spiritual influence over populations. Scientific and technological power, innovation, industrialization, and mechanization. Joseph Goebbels argued that radio rivaled these forces in its ability to shape public opinion, unifying the masses and mobilize action. He labeled radio as the 8th great power and saw it as a psychological weapon, a weapon that could penetrate homes, bypass intellectual resistance, and forge emotional allegiances, I guess I should say. Radio, the 8th great power. Mass distribution of radios. Joseph Goebbels, Nazi propaganda minister, spearheaded the creation of, and pardon the pronunciation, Volksempfänger, People's Receiver, a cheap, mass-produced radio designed to only receive Nazi-approved broadcasts. By 1939, over 70% of German households owned one. Monopoly on broadcasting. The Nazis centralized all radio stations under the Reich Broadcasting Corporation, enforcing, pardon the pronunciation again, Gluckenstein synchronization, aligning all media with Nazi ideology. Direct messaging. Hitler and Goebbels regularly addressed the nation via radio, bypassing traditional media filters. Goebbels declared it would not have been possible for us to take power or use it in the way that we have without the radio. Psychological warfare. Nazi radio exaggerated German victories and downplayed defeats. During the Battle of Britain, broadcasters falsely claimed that the Luftwaffe had crushed the Royal Air Force. Disinformation abroad. German radio also targeted foreign audiences, spreading fake news to demoralize enemies, like claiming the British were slaughtering horses due to food shortages. Strategic programming and emotional manipulation. Entertainment as distraction. When military news was grim, broadcasts shifted to concerts and cultural programming to soothe public anxiety. Mobilizing the masses. After the defeat of Stalingrad, Goebbels used radio to rally support for total war, famously asking in a 1943 broadcast, "Do you want total war?" and was met with thunderous applause. Criminalizing dissent. Listening to foreign stations like the BBC was punishable by death. This ensured near total control over what Germans heard. Cult Tactic 101. Propaganda philosophy. It bears repeating that Goebbels declared, without the radio, it would not have been possible for us to take power or use it in the ways that we have. Yes, without the radio. Using the radio, he forged a direct emotional bond between regime and the people. Hitler's Mein Kampf outlined the big lie technique, bold falsehoods repeated until accepted as truth. Radio became the perfect vehicle for this strategy. Historical echoes. Calling radio the eighth great power was prophetic insight into how media could rival armies and economies in shaping history. Today, we might say the same about social media, AI, or algorithms, but we'll save those for future videos. I hope you found this video educational, because fighting propaganda starts with education. But if you're like me, I found this to be horrifying in that it was so effective and used to justify one of the most horrific periods in human history. And along with education, we as humanity must embrace the commonalities as they relate to your religion or beliefs. We cannot stay silent to such an affront on humanity that propaganda presents. Let us all be commoners and confront this evil together to build a better society. Amen.